Thank you so much, Ashley, for having us, and thanks Get It Together for Choice for hosting these very valuable series. Um, for those of you who don't know, my name is Scott McAvoy. I'm the president and CEO of the Marbridge Foundation, and Marbridge is a 71-year-old residential training and education facility located just south of the wonderful city of Austin, Texas. We serve approximately 270 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in 3 care communities, and we're able to serve them from age 18 to end of life, predicated on their level of independence. So we have 3 care communities: Ranch for those that need a little more help and supervision, the Village, is our most independent community, and we have a skilled nursing facility on site, the Villa, so folks that are medically fragile can get the care they need and still live on the same community that they have been for years, or get admitted directly to the Villa. What we're going to talk about today is probably the most important thing that service industry organizations are faced with. That's the retention, recruitment of direct support professionals, the ones who are on the ground and are there with your residents 100% of the time. As you know, in the past, for decades, it's been a challenge to attract the best direct support professionals that are able to supervise, take care of residents, particularly difficult during and post-pandemic. Wages have been rising. It's been difficult to attract folks back to the field who have left the field because of the pandemic. So it's a lot of challenges that we hope we can get some ideas today. This is going to be as much of an interactive seminar as we can give. If you have any questions, put them in the question box. Ashley will take count of them, and at the end of our webinar, we'll do our best to answer them. And please share things that have worked for you guys too. The whole idea is to give and take and share things that have been effective for the organizations across the country. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our Vice President of Human Resources, Megan Salyer.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. Scott did a good overview of Marbridge as an organization and our mission and who we serve. So I can give a little overview of what that looks like from an employment side. So we employ about 380 folks in total. Of those 380 employees, about 240 are full-time employees. About 80 are PRN or as needed per re nata. So they fill in and substitute as needed. And then about 60 of those are actually our residents that we do employ here in different departments. For the human resources team specifically, there are 3 of us. So I'm the vice president of human resources, and I focus a lot on strategy, policies, employee relations, training, things of that nature. We also have an HR assistant, and that role really focuses on the day-to-day administrative tasks and functions within human resources. And then we do have an actual recruiter where their main focus truly is full cycle recruitment, from posting the job all the way through the follow-up after an employee has been hired and they're in their new hire phase. I know a lot of organizations have smaller teams and may not have a recruiter at all. I know when I started at Marbridge over 10 years ago, we did not have a recruiter. And so it does make a big difference. So I'm very thankful that we have that role. And we'll talk a little more about how that's been impactful for us here at Marbridge. So the next slide has some metrics just to give a general overview of kind of where Marbridge stands versus the national averages with DSPs. So for the most part, we're doing okay. Our turnover is definitely lower. And again, we'll talk about specifically what we think is working for us to make that possible. And would love to hear your feedback as well.
Megan, the slides are not up. Did you want me to post the slides, share the slides? I can do that.
Would be great.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that.
While we're waiting, I can't stress the importance of, Marbridge didn't have a real HR department until about 15 years ago. Then we figured one of the most important things we can do is attract and retain our direct support professionals. So we elevated it to a director of HR, and then we put it as part of our senior management team as the vice president of HR, and added a few more positions because as norm, we were all kind of recruiting. Every position at Marbridge helps with the recruiting, but we don't focus on it as much as you should. The onboarding is not going to go the way it should. Orientation is not going to go the way it should, and attracting enough candidates will be slowed as well. So I advise all the organizations out there to really focus on the HR department and the proper personnel in there.
There it is.
Sorry.
So that was the overview of Marbridge and some of our wonderful residents having the best time at Six Flags, which is made possible by some of our direct support folks that take them on these outings and keep them safe while they're there and having clearly the best time. If you can go down to the next slide, Ashley. So this is the metrics I was talking about where it's our turnover is the top one there, which I said it's a lot lower than the national average. The vacancy as well is lower for us typically. However, our time to fill is longer. It can take us quite some time once we do have a vacancy to fill it. And we'll talk about what that looks like for us, that process. And then our tenure, we do have really good tenure. While the average for DSPs is 2.6 years, we have many that are well over 10 years. They've been with us a very long time, and I can attribute most of that to the residents, as all of you know. That's the best part. But I like to think that's also a lot of what we're doing as an organization to really value our employees and make them want to stay.
Creating a really rewarding culture. You know, when you serve people with IDD, the culture is probably the most important thing. We're person-centered, not just with our residents, but with our employees as well.
Absolutely. So for us, what's working? For us, we've seen a lot of success with sign-on bonuses and referral bonuses. Of course, money is always going to be a factor for folks. It's always going to matter. People have to make a living wage. They have to take care of their families. So we've had a lot of success with that. Specifically, the referral bonuses for our current employees. They can speak better to the culture and to the job than anyone else. So if they're recruiting someone and say this person has merit and is going to be a good asset to the team, that speaks volumes, and we want to reward them for that. And incentivize them to do that. So we've gotten many of our staff have come through referrals from other employees. We also offer perks that may seem small, but really add up and have been impactful. So all of our staff eat for free when they're on shift. So if there's a meal served, they're welcome to partake in that meal. Most of myself and my team do that on a daily basis. So it's a really nice perk. It saves money, it saves time. It's nice to have that hot meal here. So that's a big one. And then we also have a state-of-the-art gym on site that was built in 2015, primarily for our residents. They engage in activities there and attend classes and do exercise and practice for Special Olympics. But we do allow our employees to access that facility as well. So it's basically a free gym membership for folks that are interested in that. And it's right on site. You don't even have to leave and go anywhere. So that's been really well received as well in terms of recruiting and retention as well. I talked about we have that recruiter having that direct point of contact for someone as they're applying. They have someone that's kind of holding their hand from step one, from that first time someone reaches out or responds to, their Indeed resume or their inquiry through. They know that person's name and that person's with them the entire time through the process. Whether it's setting up the interview, it's come on site for their interview, it's walking them to their interview afterwards. That has been really impactful so that the person, the valued, they feel like they have a place to ask questions. It just really gives a sense of comfortability from day one. And then we talked about our mission and culture. That's what's working for us, right? The mission is essential, and if somebody thinks that's purposeful, meaningful work, we got it, right? That's an and absolutely fulfill that cup. And then as far as the culture, like Scott was explaining, just really trying to make sure that our person-centered approach goes beyond our residents. And that means getting to know our employees, what's important to them, what's their love language, how do they feel valued? Is it words of affirmation, those kind of things, basic, but if you really get to know each individual employee, because it's not going to be the same for any team, so really getting to know that and making sure that your managers are as well, and they're being intentional about those things. Of course, word of mouth, as Scott said, we've been here a long time, and so people know Marbridge really well. And so, really encouraging all of our staff to remember you're always representing us. And if you're out in the community and you meet someone and, they're kind and they seem, maybe you're out with our residents and they really engage with them, well, maybe they should come see us. Maybe they should visit and really spread that word of mouth. And then we also have interns that come from the local universities. We're lucky that where we're at in super South Austin, we have UT, of course, but we have several other universities very close by. And so we get a lot of internships, whether it's for psychology, recreational therapy, sociology, social work, those different areas that want to do their internships with us, which is wonderful. And then once they're on campus and they spend time with our residents and they spend time on our beautiful campus, they don't want to leave. And so it turns into employment, which is wonderful. So really leaning into those university partnerships as much as we can.
One that's different when you look at direct support professionals who usually don't have a license or certification. So the internship that we have with Texas State University is essentially people in the School of Psychology. We've worked with them. They developed a curriculum, a 3-course curriculum, which basically is this concentration in intellectual disability. And students in that curriculum spend 1 semester at Marbridge. We pay them a small fee to come. It's not necessarily a paid internship. They get a little stipend. But at the end of their graduation, this is close to graduation, they've had experience with Marbridge. We're not that far away. And we've hired a few folks because that's what they desire to do once they've been out here to see what population we're serving. So those things can be generated with any higher education university anywhere across the country with the right folks getting involved. So I highly encourage that.
Absolutely. So that's what's been working for us. What are some of the obstacles we've had? So you can see one of our residents here, John, has his own obstacle there as he's preparing for the equestrian Special Olympics team. But for us, obviously competitive pay is always going to be an issue, right? So depending on where you are, what the living wage is, what the minimum wage is, all of those things. So we try to evaluate that very regularly to make sure that we are externally competitive for our area and our industry, as well as, of course, internally fair. So constantly doing that, but it is an obstacle as a nonprofit. You guys know that that's raising the pay without raising the tuition or anything like that creates a gap there that has to be filled somehow. So
And if you evaluate competitive pay and you look at the cost of not paying the prevailing wage, the cost of that is turnover, high overtime, uncovered shifts, the care of the residents goes south. So when you really look at getting to a point where you're competitive pay, you are really saving money in a lot of ways, and the care of your clients is improving, the care of your residents. So that's the number one thing you can do. And I know folks, when they talk about recruitment and retention, well, we don't have enough money to do that. I just want you to know the cost of not doing it in some cases is higher than paying the prevailing wage.
Definitely can cost more in the long run. Same thing with competitive benefits, and trying to be creative with those benefits, and what we offer, and always evaluating with the broker. Maybe it means a change of broker, maybe it means a change of how we're funding those benefits. Just being creative and open to those changes to make sure that we're really being competitive, because aside from pay, that's what employees need. They need health insurance, they want pet insurance, they need disability, those kind of things. So always reevaluating that, and making sure that you're looking, it's ever evolving. There's new things in the market, new ways to construct your benefits. And so always staying on top of that and the changes. For us, another obstacle can be location. Even though Austin is getting closer and closer, we are still a little bit rural. And so there's no like public transportation options near us, anything like that. So that can also be a little bit of a deterrent for folks to work here at Marbridge. So, and then a huge one has been, as you guys know, during COVID, all of a sudden everyone could do everything from home. Any job could be done, work from home, it seemed like. And so once people realize that, that's all they want to do. Well, clearly, when you're taking care of people and humans, that's not an option for us. So that's been a really big struggle, is competing with, well, I want to work from home or I want to work hybrid. Okay, well, our residents are humans and they're here, and we want to provide them with care and engagement, and that's not going to work. So how do we combat with that in other industries that can do that? And then just finding qualified candidates, really finding folks that have the passion, have the skills, versus, somebody that just wants a job, and it's very much a me culture. What are you going to do for me? What do I get out of it? It doesn't matter what I bring to the table. What about me, me, me? And so those have been some of the major obstacles for us as an organization.
And I think when you look at qualified candidates and you look back at the slide that explained it took us a little longer to find the right candidates. That's why. We didn't want to just hire any candidate. We wanted to find qualified candidates. When you look at this average time to fill vacancies, 14 weeks versus 10.5 weeks, that's why. I think it's important that you take time to find the right candidates. Those candidates will stay longer, provide better care, which will impact your residents, versus finding people to fill vacancies as soon as you can. You'll make mistakes there, and your residents will suffer, and the turnover will come again, and the cost per employee will go up.
Yes, and it can affect the team as well, not just the residents, but if you bring someone in that's now part of your team, and they're not a team player, they're not a qualified candidate, that's going to be bad morale for everyone. So you may have turnover not only in just that one position, but now you may see it in other positions because of that, because it was, just a quick warm body rush to hire. So definitely sometimes it's worth taking that time in, and the staff will realize it over time too as well, that while it may be a burden in the interim to have to be short staffed, that it's going to pay off in the long run for us to really vet and find the right people. So that's kind of where we've been. So some of the solutions that some we've implemented and some we've just kind of talked about. We haven't actually moved forward with them, but we've heard them. We've kind of bounced them around with our senior management team. Or we've heard through, we completed an employee survey earlier this year to really give employees a way to anonymously respond to some questions. We wanted to know, kind of get a level set. Where are we at? What are we doing well? What do you like? What don't you like? Because while we can guess, maybe even make educated guesses, it's really kind of come from our staff, right? So we did that. And some of the things that came out of that is, we don't have a live-in model at Marbridge. None of our staff live on campus. Nobody sleeps on campus. That's not our model. But something that was thrown out was, even if we weren't going to have that model, is there potential for housing for staff? We do have 200 acres here, so we have space. So that idea has been thrown around, tiny houses or lots of different options of what that could look like, but maybe that would help with, the cost of living and ever rising in Austin, and I'm sure in some of your areas as well.
We are talking about apartments on campus, not just for residents, but for employees as well. We kind of reverse inclusive housing. That is affordable housing. So that would benefit some of our staff members and benefit us by having close to where they work. Also, it would help our residents who are most independent and trying to become more independent, living independently amongst professionals that understand them, mission-centric folks. So I think in the future, the consideration of housing for employees is going to kind of take center stage.
And that kind of hits the next one as well, transportation for staff. So if they're on site, that alleviates that problem, right? But what we've talked about is if we didn't have housing for staff, is there some way we could have that transportation? So whether it's we have kind of a ride share system, or we have lots of shuttles that shuttle our residents around, but maybe there could be a shuttle system in like a central area where a lot of our staff live. That kind of thing. So just trying to be creative, think outside the box. What would really be beneficial? What would really would our employees benefit from, and what would be enticing to potential employees? Where are we looking for candidates? Are there places, are there pools of candidates that have been untapped? Because we haven't thought about that. We haven't looked there. As far as childcare assistance, as we know, our population of DSPs is very much female dominated, many of which do have children. And so that can be a huge burden for our staff. And so providing childcare assistance, whether that's through a stipend, through, benefits, dependent, FSA, those kind of things, or if we've also over the years talked about having on-site childcare. So there's different options, but just being open to that, just seeing that as a need and trying to be creative and finding some kind of solution to support our employees so that they can support our residents. We've talked about an on-site employee clinic. So because we do have a skilled nursing facility on site, we do already have a nurse practitioner here daily throughout the week, and of course nursing staff. And so it kind of evolved into, well, what if we actually had a full-blown clinic on site, both for our residents and our staff? That would really make things easier for them in terms of taking care of themselves. A healthier staff is better for the residents. It's better for the organization. It's better for insurance purposes. It all around could be a positive for everyone involved. And caregivers aren't good at taking care of themselves. We all know that. And so that would really kind of alleviate that boundary and that obstacle that they have if it's right here on site where they're already spending so much of their time. Other feedback we heard through that survey, a really big one was that they wanted to have our employees want internal growth. They want development. They want to learn new things. They want to have mobility within the organization. So they don't want to feel stagnant. And for our organization, it is very, there isn't a lot of opportunity currently for promotion or growth. And so we heard that feedback, and we're really looking at what could that look like? Does that look like, tiered levels for DSPs? Maybe there's a DSP 1, DSP 2, etc., where, based on completing certain courses or certain trainings or certain time frames, that person can then be promoted to the next level, which would, come with a new title, a small pay increase, but it would be mobility. It would be something to strive for, something to achieve, versus being stagnant for, potentially years on years in the same role.
And we've got plenty of the examples of upward mobility at Marbridge. Megan and I are two of them. I've been here 21 years and started as director of one of our communities and became vice president of operations. And I've been president for a couple of years. Megan's got a similar story. So we got plenty of, there's avenues to do that. We're taking a big picture approach, looking at succession planning. We're always evaluating who's going to be the next person in what position, and do we have anyone on site that would fit that mold? And if so, what do we do to help them move along? And Megan and Marcus, our vice president of operations, are doing provide management training to supervisors and above, assistant directors, directors, et cetera. So we're helping people to feel like there's an opportunity and we're giving them the path forward. And I think that it creates a lot of opportunities for our employees. And we're also not above if an employee wants to pursue something that we can't provide them, we'll assist in that manner too. But the goal here is to have employees that feel like they have a path forward, they can be promoted, they can stay with Marbridge and that sort of thing. So working very hard at that.
Yes, there's a big push for us in the next several years for us to really invest in our staff, invest in our people. If it's the right person, they have a passion for what we do, for our mission, for our residents. We want to really pour into them and invest in them, whether that's through training, time, exposure to different things that they aren't exposed to. Like Scott said, he and I both started in different roles and promoted from within, and so we know it's possible, and we've had other staff do it as well. And so, really looking at that as well, because a lot of skills, training, you can develop a person, but in terms of their passion and their heart and what they, the commitment to the residents, that can't be taught. So if they have that, it's worth investing, for sure. Another solution, applicant tracking system. So in terms of recruiting, making sure that, things aren't falling through the cracks. Someone's not waiting for a callback for, 3 weeks, because it just fell through. Making sure, really tracking through that process so that it's consistent. We're staying on top of it, and good candidates aren't being overlooked or missed for, something simple that should have been addressed and just wasn't, because it wasn't being tracked well and wasn't being managed well. We just talked about professional development opportunities, really leaning into that, making sure you're highlighting the whole, the total compensation package, and helping individuals understand the value in those other items. Because I know for us, many of our DSPs, their highest level of education is typically high school. And so they may not completely understand the value that's being brought by some of the other things that Marbridge offers. So just giving that time and energy to kind of help them understand and educate them, and to see the value in that, before they simply, see the pay and then see 25 cents more down the road and think that that's it. That's all that matters. And then providing a realistic job preview. We've had a lot of success with having folks shadow. So they interview, the interview goes well, they're interested, we're interested, but before we move forward, really having them spend time with someone in that role, to really see what does it look like, what is the day to day. Especially if they're newer to the field. Maybe they had some experience with a family member with IDD or something like that, so they understand maybe that part of it, but they don't have the actual experience working in a setting like ours. And so letting them really see that, because again, as Scott said, we don't want to just fill it with anybody. And we also, we want to see what it looks like, to see them engage with the residents, see them in that, but also give them a chance, so that they're not signing up and committing to something that, you're going to spend a lot of time and money and energy investing in this person for them to leave in a month because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So we find a lot of value in providing that. Okay, Ashley, if you want to go, thank you. This is just some trends that we're seeing right now. And this funny little cartoon. I was talking with Ashley earlier. Scott and I were talking with her about AI and just how crazy it is, and the insane things it can do. So this is just a funny little thing about AI and the trend, and that we're pretty much, these are just two AI bots talking to each other here. But employee value proposition, that's really what is the value for that employee, the whole experience, everything that can be offered to them. And how do you highlight those things so that they can see them? How do you market yourself? How do you brand yourself to make sure that those things are being seen? The trends in hiring is moving away from, the educational requirements and background, and more into skilled base. What's your experience? What's your skill set? I don't really care if you have a degree, if you've done this for this many years and been successful. So that's a really big trend and something that we should all be considering, and what we're requiring of applicants, and what really matters. What have we seen within our own organization that's been successful, and kind of reevaluating those requirements as needed. Flexibility, I talked about the work from home. Obviously, that's not something a DSP can do, but are there creative shift options? Is there shift sharing? Is there, the Baylor shift option? Those kind of things where you have to think creatively about how can I work to really offer something that's enticing, that's going to work for somebody, to where they're going to not only want to come work here, but they're going to stay long term. And then Scott and I just talked about internal recruiting, really looking at the folks that we have within our own organization. And, if somebody really stands out, somebody has that passion for the mission. Okay, what are their current skill sets, and what are they lacking, and how do we pour into them to make sure that we're promoting from within whenever possible. Okay, so now we'll do move into retention. So this is what's been working for us. We already talked about referral bonuses, face-to-face time with the C-suite. We here at Marbridge, all of our C-suite are on campus basically every day, all day, very accessible. Make it a point to get out of our offices, go out and about and be seen, talk to people, catch up with them, ask them how they're doing. Really trying to build those relationships and break down any barriers that may seem like they're there, so that we are accessible to folks, and they know who we are, they know where to find us, they feel comfortable, they feel appreciated. Like, hey, Scott, the CEO, he knows my name. He asked how my kids were doing. That little bit can add so much to how that employee feels valued, and seen and appreciated at an organization. So we're very intentional about that.
During our survey of staff, that was very clear. You can think as a senior management team that you're getting out there a lot, and they know you. And I make a point of going and meeting everyone at orientation, do just a handshake and hey, tell them where my office is. But the survey showed that we weren't nearly doing as good a job as we should. And just senior, there was a question on there about senior management team appreciate my work, and it was either they didn't feel like it or they didn't know. So just those small things make a big difference, and I've seen that over and over.
Definitely. And the next one is that same intentionality for managers. So, saying thank you, or you did a really good job handling that situation, or hey, I see so and so's having a great day, and I think that your approach is really working well. Just acknowledging small things here and there can really be impactful. And so we try to also encourage our managers to do that with intentionality. So we talked about employee-centered culture, getting to know each employee and what makes them tick, why they're here, what's their story. Obviously with appropriate professional boundaries, but getting to know them as a human, and not just, oh, we need you, you're an employee, you feel this time frame, great. And then also doing periodic across the board wage adjustments. So Scott can speak to the numbers. I try to not think about them. The increases we've had.
So, and this is the intentionality of paying competitively. So as an organization, since the pandemic ended, we had to raise wages across the board by $3 million. Those are just wage increases. They're not new positions. Because what happens is if you're raising your starting pay, that's you get there's compression that you have to raise everyone else's pay, because it just won't. It won't go. If you're hiring somebody that's going to be now paid more than someone that's been with you for 5 years, regardless of whether you think they talk or not, they do talk and they compare. And I think it should be an open book. But again, it costs money. What that did for us is make us focus more on making sure we're managing costs company-wide. better. We're focusing on the direct support wages. We had to raise more money. We talked about the reason for raising more money is because we need to pay our direct support professionals and others more money to take care. We wanted to hire the best. And because of that, we were able to raise money. And over time, we started looking at things like our nursing home is primarily Medicaid paid. We were able to get a rider, an increased budget starting in September, given the fact that we serve at least 90% of folks with IDD. The state recognizes a different population. You know, these aren't elderly people. A lot of them are not bed bound. They take a different type of care that may not look acute to medical professionals. In some cases, they must have a medical condition to be there, but recognize it needs more staff to keep them more engaged. So the raising of wages, and just when you look at across the board, you also have to look at if you've got a certain person that's you want to retain at Marbridge, and you see them having a future role as a manager or something. Those are individual wage adjustments that you have to make as well. So you got to really evaluate where you are, how you're going to do it, where the money's coming from. You know where you can save money to decrease the cost to afford that, how much you have to raise, how much you got to pass on the families, trying to be affordable, and that sort of thing. It's challenging, but for the sake of retaining the right people to take care of your residents, it's worth it. Families understand it.
Right. So that's what's worked for us. Some of the obstacles, again, compensation, a lot of these are going to be similar to recruiting. The one I would say that stands out that's different are the last two. So poor leadership, poor management. So, you know, there's this saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And that's true. That's absolutely true. We find that other than leaving for more money, the other reason usually is going to be they're dissatisfied with management. And so really taking the time to look at our management and provide them with trainings with the skill sets that they need. You know, we're really focused on, we want leaders, not managers. And so what does that mean? What's the difference? How do we get from one to the other? You know, we have some folks that we've promoted because of all the reasons we've already said today that didn't have people management experience. And so, you know, that's a learning curve, but we saw that, we've identified it, they've identified it. And together we're working to train them up and you know, meet that learning curve. The other thing is, go ahead.
Both on-campus training and off-campus. We've got the University of Texas providing some training. We've got a local group that's doing some leadership training. It's a national group, and we're going to have, you know, our managers that we want in those positions that are in leadership as well attend those off-campus trainings.
Correct, as well as in-house management training that we're doing. So it's definitely a multitude of different ways that we're approaching it to try to make sure we're covering all the bases. And acknowledging that if we do promote someone that doesn't already have that experience, before we ever get to that point, we're having these conversations with them about, you know, this is your area you're lacking in, and making sure that they identify that, they are able to self-reflect and see that, and they're open to learning, because that's key, right? If the person doesn't see that that's a deficit for them, even if it is just lack of experience, and then that they aren't open to trying to learn and do better in that area, it's not going to be successful. So we identified that before we ever start investing and moving forward. So the folks that we're sending to these different trainings and that we're training on campus, they are sponges. They want it. They want to do better. They want to learn in those areas. So I think that's really important as well, and why it's so far been successful. And then the last area, that's stress and burnout. So, you know, that's huge in our industry, especially during COVID and post COVID. So trying to think of ways of acknowledging, being empathetic to that's a real thing. And trying to find ways. Sometimes that can be, you know, we increased our PTO rollover. Not only is that a financial benefit, but that says you're not losing this PTO it's here for you. We want you to use it. We want you to have that time away to kind of reset. That's only benefits our residents in the long run. So, trying to focus on that as well as doing fun events throughout the year that are geared specifically towards our employees, sometimes their families as well. So we've had, a roller skating night where we rented out the local roller skating rink, and it was just for us and our employees and their families. And so that was a fun way to kind of, relieve some stress, relax, and also kind of team build and have that kind of culture building, team building aspect as well. So being creative in those ways, and that was at no cost to us. We were able to get that completely covered. So a lot of times, as Scott was saying, families will understand the increasing wages and need to pay the people that take care of your people. But they also understand that, hey, we want to really treat our staff with this meal or this fun adventure or whatever it may be. And they're all about that because they know the work that our DSPs put in. So that's something to think about too. If you're thinking we can't afford that, well, we didn't have to. And that was what made it even better than the experience itself. So
I guess these are all solutions, but families, yeah, when our staff love shirts, Marbridge swag, and family just gave us a bunch of money, so we're able to buy shirts, and we created an online store where our employees can go and order their own stuff, Marbridge branded stuff. We can put some money in there, credits for employees as a benefit to them. Use it for recognition, use it just for being an employee, doing a good job. We give t-shirts out to every new employee, and then like for our Founders Day, we had a Founders Day shirt and a nice tumbler, and they like that swag stuff as well, So paying competitive wages, having good benefits, and I don't think we described our benefits, but we have a decent we have decent health insurance. We've got a 401k with a 4% match. We've got free long-term disability. We've got some life insurance. Just that's the full compensation package that Megan was talking about. Megan, I'll go ahead and let you go. Sorry.
you're good. You're good. So some of the solutions we've used for retention, like I said, that employee survey. If you have not done an employee survey or haven't done one recently, I highly encourage you to do that. There's lots of different apps you can do it through, where it's anonymous so that your staff feel comfortable and will give, real feedback. The key is, though, don't only do the survey, you then have to act on the survey. We were very conscientious of the fact that whatever we hear, we need to have swift, immediate action as possible so that they know we weren't just doing this to check a box. Okay, survey done, move on. No, we really want to know what you have to say. Obviously, we can't just say, okay, you want more money, here's all the money. But there were other things and feedback that we received that we were able to take pretty immediate action on, to show that we heard them and we want to do what we can to meet their needs. One of those is listed here down towards the bottom. It says more PTO and innovative ways to use it. Although we didn't increase our PTO accrual, we did increase how much they can roll over each fiscal year. And then we did institute a cash out once a year. Employees can cash out up to 40 hours if they meet the requirements to do so of PTO. We've never had that before at Marbridge. We've never allowed staff, we've never had a standing policy where you could cash out your PTO. And so that was really well received. And that's not only a financial benefit, but it's for us as an organization, we've already budgeted for that, right? Those hours are already there that we're allowing them to cash out. So it really is something that we were able to do without adding a burden to the organization.
And you don't have to add a staff member to cover those hours because they're working them and cashing out. Most of these things, you realize that people, direct support professionals in particular, their focus is cash. How much am I getting paid? Do I have the opportunity to make overtime or other ways that I can? And even though you encourage them want to take time off, especially around the holidays, they want to earn as much money as they can and use as much money as they can to take care of their families.
Okay, I'll finish up with just a couple of things before we move on, Ashley. I know we want to leave a couple of minutes for questions or feedback. On this slide, I just want to point out because we've talked about most of these things, but one of them would be communication. So that was one of the biggest things we heard about through the employee survey is that employees want more communication. They want transparency. And while we thought we were kind of doing that, we see that we could do better. And so as we did make these changes to the PTO policy and things like that, a big part of that was also communicating that. So it wasn't just, hey, there's this change. It was, hey, was the result. This is what your feedback was. We heard you. Here's what we're doing about it. So really that communication piece of making sure they understand the kind of connecting points there. Anytime we make big changes or anything big happening with the organization, making sure that we're giving as much information about it, why it's happening, when it's happening, where it came from. As Scott mentioned with the swag, some of our staff, if we just give them swag while they like it, they may go, oh, well, I'd rather have a raise. Okay, well, the thing is that money came from a family member specifically for this, and they might not understand that. And so that's that transparency of explaining this funding was very specific for this. It's not something we could have used for wages, especially not in perpetuity long term. So communication is going to be key. And then the other thing I want to point out on here um, is the interview questions. So really encourage you to use behavioral questions. So asking for specific examples, asking about specific situations and how they acted, putting them in scenarios so that you can really kind of get under just the basic answers that most people kind of know what the right answer is versus if they have to answer situational questions. That's something they're going to have to come up with on their own, and you're going to kind of really learn more about them and who they are. All right, Scott, you want to speak to the resource page?
Yeah, the last page on this is just resources. American Network Community Options Resource have a lot of direct support professional stuff on there, and it's an organization you can join if you'd like to. National Alliance Direct Support Professionals, Joe Macbeth's the head of that. You can join this, and they have a direct support professional, the College of Direct Support, which you can get your employees certified as direct support professionals. University of Minnesota Institute on Community Integration, a lot of work with direct support. And then you got the U.S. Department of Labor and Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation. With that, we're open for any questions or feedback that you guys might want to share.